But I just came to confess that I'm just feeling so blessed. I'm just feeling so blessed. I'm just feeling so blessed. Wake up every day, big smile on my face. I just came to confess that I'm just feeling so blessed.
Is this a play on warehouse?
It is. my dad made that up. So yeah, guys, we're actually in the warehouse now. So welcome to the warehouse, a home for and headquarters for production. So we're going to be talking about our honest review of the Joker. As you can see, we have our DC Gotham paraphernalia on. And we're going to put where Joaquin Phoenix's and Todd Phillips' Joker into perspective culturally, but also in the DC, cinematic universe.
And it's a spoiler review.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mike. So spoilers, spoiler warnings, obviously. For whatever reason, I think people are deluding themselves if they click on a video or a podcast that says, movie review of a movie that's recent.
Right.
And it's over, let's say, over 10 minutes.
Right.
Obviously, they're going to go into the nitty-gritty of the film. So.
I definitely agree, but they still get mad for some reason you don't put spoiler alerts.
Exactly. And then sometimes they still get mad even if you do put spoiler alerts.
This is true.
So it's just one of those things. Guys, personal responsibility,
Right. So I guess I'm the hero and you're the villain now because I'm Batman.
I would love to be the villain. That would be so much fun. Okay. Why so serious, Mike?
We'll see. So, Joker, which we're going to start with, was I seen it opening weekend.
How are the crowds?
The crowd opening weekend it wasn't actually packed in my theater, but they all loved the movie. Mm-hmm. They stood, up after the movie and kind of stayed for a little bit. So, they really, really enjoyed it. It was one of those movies where it just kept you, as much as it lacked big fireworks and CG explosions, it still kept you riveted throughout the entire movie.
1,000%. And you said the budget was what, $70 million?
Budget was 70 to 75 million, and now it's made over 800 million. I think 850 up towards. And
is that worldwide or just America?
That's worldwide.
Okay.
But that's still amazing.
Sure.
And it hasn't even opened in China, which is one of the biggest markets for movies in the entire world.
1,000%, yeah.
Right. And because they're not sure how that type of movie will really play in China. However, to make that much without a China opening is amazing on that budget. So in the movie world, if you take your budget for the movie, and then you take your marketing expense, so that they actually marketed more than they budgeted for the movie. So they used like $100 million in marketing.
That sounds about right. All right. So for me, I have a marketing mindset, so I include that in the budget.
Okay.
So, let's call it $170 million budget.
Okay, we can do that
because the marketing is the major aspect, because that's what separates, let's say, indie media from mainstream media, is that marketing budget.
Okay.
So remember when The Dark Knight was coming out, they spent like $200 million on the marketing aspect.
Yes.
Or when remember when Spectre came out, the James Bond film. Remember they had the what's it called? The posters on the all public transportation.
Right.
All over the world. They had it on Heineken bottles.
Right.
So there's a massive push for that type of marketing. So I always include that in that, because that raises awareness. It's similar in the music industry. If you're a mainstream artist, you got to get your plays on the radio, or else it's not going to explode.
I agree. So overall budget, let's say 175.
Mm-hmm.
So for a movie, you want to make 2 to 3 times your overall budget to be a successful movie.
Right.
This is made 4 times that, plus. So it's amazingly successful.
And I'll be honest, as a DC fan, DC really needed this.
Right.
In a massive way.
Also the top grossing DC movie of all time. Also the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time.
Right. So that was the main part that really impressed me for a comic book movie that isn't Deadpool, that's rated R, that actually has a massive amount of substance to it.
Right.
And to have this type of effect, that's profound.
Oh, I think it is. I think it touches so many different areas when you watch the movie. And now it's like this race to can it make $1 billion, which it doesn't have to.
Right.
But
I mean, like you said, with China.
Right. It may or may not do that. And when I say it touched so many different areas, it's the comic book fan, just the Joker fan itself, the mental health field.
Absolutely.
Because of what was going on, in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
The police in the movie, the relationship with his mother. There's so many different aspects. And then just a struggling guy trying to do something with his life and be a comic and how they treated him.
Right.
So, goes so many areas. So my overall review, I'll start. My review, spoiler alert, once again, was even though the movie is called Joker, in my opinion, he didn't actually become Joker until the last 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I would say last 10, but yeah.
Okay. So it's a story about Arthur Fleck to me, but the story was amazing.
True.
Overall. Some of those concepts, even though it was set in the early 80s, the movie, are still going on today. There's still people struggling to get insurance who have mental health issues, getting turned away because they don't have the right type of insurance, but still needing the type of help that they need.
And what really worried me in terms of, let's call it predictive programming, is the fact that the massive wage gap, or not wage gap, that actual gap between the wealthy and the poor.
Right.
And each, opposing side's view on that reality.
Right, which is always been a big deal since the inception of the United States.
Right.
And then the whole aspect of how they treat people who have those type of disabilities and not, helping them in certain ways. And you watch that. So you kind of watch him unravel. And it's crazy because we watch it from a guy, I don't know, his 40s, I guess.
Probably.
I would say. But what else happened throughout his entire life that we even missed? So when they say he got to the point where it made him go, quote unquote, crazy, but we don't know what else happened. So, more built up to that. So even though the events we saw were very traumatizing, imagine what more he went through to finally get to that point.
It's true. Like you said, it's the story of Arthur Fleck. And we actually learn at the end of the movie, like we said, spoiler alert, if, in case, we learn about his mental health history as well as his mother's mental health history. So like you said, a lot of the themes going on in the film actually going on in real life. So his mom was diagnosed with being delusional,
right,
and narcissism.
Right.
And unfortunately, if you think about a lot, and this is why it got negative reviews because of the mainstream, let's say, feminist media,
right,
is because it actually put the responsibility on women.
Right.
And you have a lot of women who are narcissistic and delusional, especially in our generation of millennials. We're trained to be narcissistic, and we're also trained to be delusional. So that's what's going to happen. All that is going to be inherited by children. So unless you're a really conscious individual, you're going to keep your family, your bloodline is going to inherit that into the future, which is why mental health is usually hereditary.
I agree with that. At the meat of what you're saying, the hereditary aspect of mental health, and also passing some of your traits along to your children. I definitely agree with that 100%. And going back to the film, you see that, you can actually really see it developing early in the film. But then they kind of put it all out there about her history and that he didn't know.
And to be fair to Mrs. Fleck, we don't know if that's doctored or not by Mr. Wayne.
By Mr. Wayne, who was the most powerful person in all of Gotham.
Which is consistent, so I appreciate that, DC comic book aspect of the film.
Right, exactly, which is, spoiler alert, so the movie has Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father in the movie, as a very powerful individual, and Bruce Wayne is, I would say, 9 or 10 years old, maybe 11 or 12, in the movie. So you start to see those early aspects of how big Wayne Enterprise really was and how powerful the whole Wayne family was in Gotham even before Bruce took over the mantle. Also, a younger Alfred in the movie,
Right.
taking care of Bruce as he always has throughout. And with the mother, besides the diagnosis, which we are not sure is valid or not, within that diagnosis, you also read some things that still happen today too, where the mother apparently had a boyfriend or husband who was very abusive to Arthur.
Physically and emotionally and physically, as well as the mother as well.
Exactly. And more like the mother kind of let it happen, I guess, so to speak, to the point where they took him away and things of that nature. And these are still, again, some concepts you see happening where women are in certain relationships.
And here's the thing, in terms of personal responsibility, right? If you, and it could apply to both men or women,
Right.
If you have a child before a relationship and that child, you bring that child around someone else who isn't beneficial for that child, it's your responsibility as the parent. However, if you're, let's say, insecure enough to be like, okay, I'm just going to tolerate that because I just want to be with someone, which apparently this is what the file said.
Right.
So, Mrs. Fleck, come on.
Yeah, ultimately you're the protector of your child at all times.
Right.
So you have to protect them no matter who else is hurting them in any type of way. And, once you have a child, they become your number one thing to protect over anything. So, so again, that's just another concept from a movie depicted in the early 80s, which is always going on. So this is why even when it's a period film, so to speak,
Right.
People can watch it and still relate because they're not period sensitive concepts. They're still going on today.
Exactly.
I know certain people, like Jazz.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Jazz and the New You, as always. But I know certain people, like Jazz, who don't like period films, period, because they feel like they want to see all the new. And they feel like that the period films will show them things that aren't going on today, so why am I watching it? But this didn't have that. And also they showed some realism. Some of those events, even though it wasn't Gotham, which is quote-unquote New York City, right? With the garbage strike, that actually happened.
Right.
I don't know if you know or not, but, that actually happened at one point where there were rats running around because there was so much garbage in the streets because there was a garbage man strike. And, I was born in 1984, so, I'm a lot younger than this movie, took place in. However, I couldn't imagine a garbage strike, and for weeks and months where you're still accumulating garbage, but no one's picking it up.
Right.
And how, but it's interesting how that event, like when it first takes place, not just in the movie, but even if it happened in real life, you probably wouldn't think it would have an effect on you. But then I start to think, if I just was walking around garbage for months, and the smells and the rats, how mentally could that affect your overall being? Staying positive or happy, things of that nature.
It's true, and the human brain is a magnificent, vessel of information and productivity, and our brains are designed to acclimate itself to whatever the surroundings. So, like you said, people are getting used to garbage and rats being on the street, and that's not really a healthy habitat for any human beings to live in.
Right. So again, something like that, and I think that was a backdrop to show not just Arthur, but the city and how inevitably, it was going to crash and burn. So again, by Todd Phillips, that was amazing, and the writing and the screenplay and all of it. I thought the build-up of everything was good. I thought the pacing was good, and even though Joaquin's in literally every frame of the movie, I never got tired of Joaquin.
It's true, because like you said in the beginning, you're on the edge of your seat all the time because you know where this tale is leading. Like, okay, each action literally that we're seeing is going to lead him to become the Joker. And then, as you said before, first the kids take a sign and then he gets beat up and jumped.
Right.
So like you said, all that trauma before, and then we see the trauma like, damn, this happened to you too.
Right.
And then after that, damn, this happened to you too.
Right. And then, he gets fired from the job he loves, as being a clown and making people. Because ultimately, I think he wanted to entertain people, and he wanted to make people laugh, which is why he loved the late night TV show. He wanted to be the host of the show.
Shout out to Murray and Robert De Niro.
Shout out, definitely. So, like you said, seeing all that trauma develop and seeing where he goes with it. Like, again, the pacing was good. I thought Zazie Beetz as his pseudo love interest was good. And I say pseudo because we learned that it was all delusion.
What we learned a lot was delusion, which was an interesting aspect of Todd Phillips' representation of the Joker. So him going on Murray in the beginning was an illusion.
Right.
Him having the love interest and having it develop, her being there by his side when his mother's in the hospital was all manufactured in his imagination in a very Secret Life of Walter Mitty way. You know how we all, or kind of like the cartoon Doug.
Right.
When you have the imagination that, you're Quail Man and that you're actually doing X, Y, and Z, but actually you're just, Doug, or in this case, Arthur.
Right. Yeah. Even her at the comedy club laughing at his jokes and things of that nature. It was just a lot. And that part, that actually blew my mind when they actually showed that she was never really there all that time. And I thought that part from there on, I was like, this is a great, great movie, because I never really saw that.
1,000%, and that actually showed the parallels between our world now and, let's say, the 1980s world where that film takes place, because before, that video would be viral on things like Ridiculousness or Tosh.0, but in this case, back in those days, it would be on a late night show like Murray.
Right.
So that's how it got popular, and then you had all, it went viral for the negative reasons, but it still went viral in that essence.
Right. And also there was not as much as a sensitivity as there is today.
Right.
So to just like constantly put someone on a late night talk show and ridicule them was accepted at that time. Where right now it might be considered, a form of bullying, in today's world.
Especially with the mental health aspect.
Exactly. With that aspect. So when he finally became, I'm skipping too far ahead. So when the guy who he worked with, the big guy, I forget his name right now. However, when he wound up killing this guy in his apartment, and that was a great scene.
The clown who gave him the gun.
It was a coworker of his. He gave him a gun to protect himself after he got beat up by the kids.
And then also sold him out, too, when it happened.
When I got beat up by the kids. Then Arthur doing a job at a hospital in front of kids, which is, oh, my God. Again, this is to tell the time. Drops the gun while he's performing for these kids. And then all they do is they call his boss, which is amazing to me. And
but let's go.